the end of all evil. Never in all of history have the elements been arrayed against the evil manifested tyranny and slavery as they are today. The dreams that burn in the hearts of billions have been growing stronger through the millennia. The children of this world are owed a liberty from the slavery that few are able to comprehend. This is the most exciting era in all of human history. It is the dawn of the freedom of mankind.
Hello, welcome to the End Evil podcast. This is Chris Jantzen. This show is dedicated to the book, The End of All Evil by Jeremy Locke. Inspired by What on Earth is Happening, a podcast put on by Mark Passio. This week I'm having a special guest with me, good friend John Roeland from the Natural Freedom League, and we're going to talk about what it is to be a heretic. So we are the heretics of the apocalypse. And we'll get into that in just a minute. I just wanted to do a little introduction, let you know that the End Evil podcast is dedicated to ending slavery and teaching natural law. And the End Evil podcast is inspired by the What on Earth is Happening podcast put on by Mark Passio. And we're streaming live on the One Great Work Network. And we'll be back here every Thursday, 6 p.m. Pacific. I wanted to show you some things that I find inspiring before we get started here. Something that's kind of been, like I said, The End of All Evil is a great book. You can download it at the New Earth University for free, so you can check that out. And I wanted to tell you about autonomy. Autonomy has been an awesome thing in my life where I've met quite a few freedom-loving people and opportunities to learn about freelancing and becoming independent in your own right. So you can check out getautonomy.info if you want to learn more about that. That's inspired by Richard Grove. That's his University of Reason. And it's something that I would highly recommend looking into. I also wanted to mention real quick, or take my time mentioning, something very exciting that's coming up, and that is the Funnel Conference. This is something put on by myself and a group of my friends who we've been working for quite some time discussing natural law and how to teach natural law and the difficulties we have in our life since we've come to realizations about truth and freedom. And as the world changes, it's become more challenging, and we've really relied on one another. And we've worked together and started putting together our own presentations, and we're ready to start sharing that with the public. And we're doing a free online conference, and that's going to be February 12th and 13th. And that's going to cover topics: natural law, consciousness, holistic health, spirituality, freedom, parenting, self-defense, and community. So you can sign up for that. Go ahead and register. Head over to freedomundernaturalllaw.com, and you can register, and we'll keep you updated. And we're really looking forward to that conference. And one of the speakers in that conference is my friend John, who is an awesome speaker and a fellow heretic of the apocalypse. And I'm going to see if I have the skills to bring John's face in so everybody can see him here. Trying to manage my technology. We'll see how that goes. Here we go. What's up, John? How you doing? Welcome.
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to have you here with me tonight. Oh, you got your Funky Father shirt on.
Yeah, represent.
Right.
Yeah, Funky Fathers. My friend Mike Mattingly, our good friend. He's the Funky Father. He's an activist, musician. Check him out. His music is available on, you can go to iTunes or Apple Music. I think it's on Amazon Music too. Just search for Funky Fathers, 6 Strings of Liberty. It's good freedom music.
And you got that link on the naturalfreedomleague.com too?
Yeah, you can go there through the Natural Freedom League. That's right. We have it on our website too, linked through there. And yeah, we recorded it for him. My partner, Chill Will Keller, he's also got some background in music. So he recorded Mike just playing his songs acoustic. And yeah, Mike's like a professional musician. He's been doing it forever. And they sound really good. So yeah, people should definitely check that out. Mike chose not to stream them when we put it out, though. He didn't want to do the streaming because he said the last time he had his music on streaming, it doesn't pay very well. Oh, so, which is true. I've read about that too. It's like a really low rate that they pay for streaming your music, you know?
Huh. Well, he sure puts it out for free too, just traveling. You know, he traveled around to every capital in the United States and blasted his music, so... He does quite a service, quite a voice. It's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's powerful.
Yeah.
Hey, just so you know, Chris, first of all, thanks for having me on. It's awesome. It's cool doing the live stream here on the One Great Work Network and wherever else it is you're streaming it. And yeah, we got a good topic. I did just want to let you know, technical thing. Mm-hmm. When you started it up, the echo for me got worse. So, but it's okay. I think we can still go through with it. But, yeah, man, I think, the idea of what a heretic is, right? A heretic is a person that speaks out against the common knowledge of the day, that which, you know, typically would be a religious thought or dogma. And, for a person to speak against that, is considered heresy. And a few years ago, I came up with the idea of, you know, looking for a word that rhymed with conspiracy. I think probably, you know, thinking it in terms of like a podcast, I came up with the concept of conspiracy heresy. And kind of funny that those two words rhyme, or at least they flow. Because in the modern day, if you're talking about conspiracy, you are the modern day heretic and you're speaking out against the church of the state, right? And it's interesting how we get treated like heretics and like, you know, we get labeled as what would you call it? Domestic terrorists, right? But I looked up the definition of the word heretic, a person believing in or practicing religious heresy. That doesn't really explain anything. A person holding an opinion at odds with what is generally accepted, right? So conspiracy heresy, that's what we're doing, right? We're out here being heretics against the norms, right? And the common thought of the day, which unfortunately has been hijacked and has been misguided. And so, yeah, we're dealing with the masses that have this mindset of how things are. And as we go down this path of consciousness and evolving consciousness, we uncover and reveal all these truths and lies, right? Through the lies, we discover what seems to be closer to the truth, right? But because of the way we think as, so basically this idea, you know, as you know, Chris, I've had it for a long time. I thought of it as sort of like I'd written it kind of like a poem in a way. And it's sort of like my plea to people, you know, I guess for lack of a better term, normies, that, you know, when I speak to them or we speak to people like that, it's like you're just speaking to a mannequin, you know?
Well, can you hear me better now, John? I made a change.
Yes.
Good.
That sounds much better.
Right on. Yeah. You know, the other thing that got this heretic thing in my head, I've seen it in your work, and then I'm reading these books. It started with Dune because the movie Dune came out, right? But I read the sequel to that, and then Children of Dune, and then God Emperor Dune is the next one, and then after that's a book called Heretics of Dune, and that's the one I'm on now. And what's really interesting about this series in Dune is that it really concentrates on the idea of religion. And in the Dune series, religions are created by these Bene Gesserit witches. Well, they're one of the entities in the universe that creates religions, but they just basically seed a planet with this religion. You know, they'll show up and kind of plant these ideas, and then thousands of years later, when one of these other witches comes by, you know, they're like the savior to the planet, and everybody's like, oh yeah, you're the Holy One, right? And it shows in these books how people are so quick to fall into religion, and how it's something that it's easy for people to get caught up in a fervor. And when we look at history, we see all these terrible things that have happened in history when people blindly follow, basically, when they just believe. You know, we can think of kings, things like the Crusades, where under the guise of God's word, people are going out there and just like killing other people and taking over their stuff and stealing their things. And so religion is a really pretty scary thing, and we grow up kind of thinking like it's a good thing, but really it, you know, like we learned from Mark Passio's work when he started explaining that the word religion can mean to bind, which is a type of slavery, to be bound to something, right? And so we can see, you know, that always seemed real to me, but it didn't ever get as real as until this whole COVID situation hit, and everybody started acting differently in the physical world, actually in their actions, in the way they're going about things, and following these rituals that are being put out by the politicians. And it's like the politicians have become like priests of a religion, where they can come out with this doctrine that has no scientific backing, but just because they're saying it, people are going to do it. Like the mask thing, you know, that I always like to harp on, because to me it's just so nonsensical that, you know, a politician can say, oh, what's best for your health is to wear a mask, or distancing. You know, they can say, oh, you need to distance from people. And, well, it's like, well, where was the proof that that's even going to work? You know, why are we so sure that's even such a good idea? Just because it's coming from the mouth of the priest of the state, people are buying it, hook, line, and sinker. And that religious situation, which is just like religions of past, it's got people bound to these ideas just because the ideas are coming from these authorities. And people like you and Will and other people in our community that are willing to speak out, especially publicly, automatically become heretics, even though I haven't necessarily heard people using that word. It's what I feel like. And so when I read the book and they're talking about heretics, I'm like, that's how I feel in this world now. So I imagine you feel pretty much the same way, John.
Yeah, you know, it's like it's a shaming, right? That's the level that it's at right now in terms of like the regular public, right? But then when you have the government coming out and making statements like calling us domestic terrorists, if we're talking about, you know, things like natural law, like I thought it was funny that Mark Passio's video, you know, the science of natural law, there's a little label on it on YouTube that says it's like offensive to people. And it's like, how is anything in this offensive? But to that mindset, it is, because their religion has a different value set, right? And it's not about freedom, right? Freedom is not the primary thing. Survival is the primary thing. And, you know, and then safety and comfort, you know, and not having to have accountability for what's happening and what's going on. You know, it's funny because in terms of religion, I always thought it was interesting where with all of those words, clearly in the world as we know it now, religion is a negative thing and has been a negative thing, but it's been bastardized, right? Demonized through the language, right? And it's kind of a part of the Orwellian, newspeak, where that word religion, to bind back. Well, what does that mean? Like, truly, it means to bind back to the source, right? Like, when I was studying religion, right out of high school, I was really excited to learn, like, what I can learn what I want to learn about now, which why I didn't feel like I could do that before. I mean, I read other things other than what, they told me to in high school. There was just this sense of, I get to choose what I learn now, like when I graduated, and I really focused on like world religions and really trying to find the truth amongst all religions. And when I got into the Eastern philosophies like Taoism, it always felt to me like this sense of going back mentally, spiritually, meditatively, going back to the original thing. Like, that's sort of what the process is of uncovering and revealing, what's going on. Not only are you looking back in history, but you're looking back on a deeper spiritual level, like, where did humans come from and what is like the real answer. So Taoism, it always felt like that to me. It was always like, or any other like creationism story, right? It's like this unity, and then it shatters, goes apart for some reason, and it's realizing what that is. So my point being, the term religion, in terms of binding back something, that's, I believe, what it truly means. But what they've done is they've planted other hooks to bind you back to, right? And they're false. And what's interesting about it is what it actually has done, it's made most people actually either reject religion, or they just practice their religion in a lukewarm way, or like a traditional way, but with not much meaning to it. And that makes them actually then turn to something else for their religion, and that becomes the state. Right. And then that's the thing that they don't question at all. And they have like blind faith in this thing and believe in it. And as this apocalypse is happening, and the more and more in my lifetime, my experience of uncovering things, I mean, basically everything has been a lie. History is a lie. And so, that's going to be, we talked about the funnel conference. That's going to be the point of my presentation, kind of, is that, well, one of the points of it is, sort of laying out my experiences as a kid and how the things that I started questioning and how that built up to what we're experiencing now. And it's just, it's a personal book. It's kind of a memoir. Well, it's not necessarily a book. It could be a book. Right now it'll be a presentation, and I'm excited about the presentation for sure. That format, I've never really done that, and except for like when I was in school. So I'm looking forward to fleshing out this topic as a presentation and putting it out at the Funnel Conference.
Me too, especially because there's so much overlap, like the things you're talking about and thinking about in your story. It's very similar to the way I'm thinking about the presentation I want to make. It's kind of coming from my point of view. And this topic we're on is really appropriate because my dad was a preacher, and so I was like embedded in Christianity as a child. I was part of it. And I took it really seriously. I used to wear my cross every day and went to church every Sunday religiously. And it's not all bad. I have a lot of good memories. I think religions do, like Christianity churches I went to, have some stuff going that a lot of other aspects of our society don't have, like the community connection that's very worthwhile. And the returning to the source, the idea that you're supposed to be on this spiritual path to relearn who you are and why you're here. I think those aspects are extremely valuable. And what happens in religions, whether it's a cultural religion like we're talking about, Christianity, Catholicism, one of these type of major religions, where they want to tie you back to stories and that you have to believe these stories. The disagreement I have with people that I discuss now with the Bible, for instance, is they want to stick strictly to that,
this is God's exact, message to us. And I'm trying to point, well, this is people, trying to communicate their personal revelation through books and stories, and that gets all warped, especially over time when it's rewritten and retold. But the actual religion that I think that we're supposed to be working on, like the way you're talking about, if we use that word in the positive connotation, is to allow ourselves to be reborn all the time, which is basically being humble and being like a child and being like, this is something maybe I don't understand, and look at it with new eyes and say, maybe I was wrong. And so if we wake up every day willing to do that, then we can discover things that are true, because there are a lot of mysterious aspects to reality, and there's a lot of people that lie, especially in the world we're in now, where evil's like an abundant force. So you're more likely to see people lying and putting out falsehood, so that forces you to be able to kind of like reset your mind and go back to nothing and say, wait a second, maybe this is all BS. And when you do that, then you can rediscover what might actually be true. I'm curious how that process has gone for you over the years, John. I know you've always been probably a little different than some of the people around you, but what are some of the things that really propelled you into asking these deeper questions and kind of being awakened to this reality that authority is an evil religion, basically?
Yeah, it's funny. So I've been, writing down notes, for this presentation, and, thinking back to these different experiences as a child, these memories that I have. One of them that I had was, and these are things that like, they just stuck with me my whole life, right? Like I just remember this moment. It's like these weird epiphanies that you have through your life, and you just always remember that, that thought or that realization. So one was, and a lot of times I remember them walking to school. That's when these thoughts happened, right? And one of them was, I knew I never wanted to be in the military. I knew that at a very early age. There was something wrong with that about me, for me, intuitively. Also, in terms of religion, well, first I'll tell you about my Truman Show. My Truman Show. Leslie, you'll have to give me a better word for it. I have it written down as my Truman Show psychosis, right? And this is the same thing. I'm walking to school as a kid, and in my mind, I'm going through this little like game that everybody's watching me, that somehow I'm special, right? And everyone, everyone knew I was coming, and it's like, and I knew it wasn't real, but as a kid, you're playing with that in your mind. It's a little bit, it is a little more real, right? And I remember when the Truman Show came out, like, I used to think about that, That's actually happened to me for a few movies. It just shows you it's the collective consciousness.
I remember thinking, what if my parents were aliens?
Yeah, exactly.
Could be. Right? All of a sudden I started thinking about it.
Then you see it in the movie and you're like, oh,
probably.
Yeah, this is kind of a crazy. This is kind of a crazy one. Is I remember being, I believe I was at Disneyland, and it was with my dad. We were in the bathroom, and I don't know how long it had been happening, but I had been hearing a voice in my head, and it was like an evil little voice, and it was like, do bad stuff. It was like talk like that to me, right? And I remember telling my dad, like, I'm like hearing this voice and it's telling me to do bad things. And my dad just said, well, don't listen to it. And I just remember like, I don't remember anything else happening after that. Right. And then understanding through religion, especially Christianity, like the whole like Revelation story, that we were the evil empire. The U.S. was the evil empire. Like I had all of these like epiphanies at, pretty young ages. So I don't know. I think that sort of lends me towards like, thinking differently or looking at the world differently, questioning things. And then, remember being in high school, my friends and I, whenever coincidental things would happen, and this is probably once we started smoking a little weed, little weird coincidental things, synchronistic things, we used to call them the omens, right? And it would be like, oh, yeah, that was great. Some just weird event that would happen and it connected to some other situation. And obviously, as I got older, you realized that like they are coincidences. They're two incidences that relate to each other in some way. But the modern connotation of coincidence is that like it's just random. Like don't think anything about it, right? Instead of thinking of it in a synchronistic way, like, oh, there's a reason why there was that connection between those two events. And I should think about that. Like, what is the connection? And then, obviously psychedelics, my little experimentations with that. And then in terms of the conspiracies, the first one I remember is JFK. And I remember my mother sort of being enamored with that time of history. I remember it being called Camelot, right? And it was like sort of like a different time. That's just how I felt. Like I remember experiencing that story, and I always wondered, why don't they care who actually killed him? Like it was very clear in my mind that the original story wasn't true, and probably when I was in high school was when the JFK movie came out. So I just remember wondering, like, why, and then when I would ask my mom that the answer I would get would be, what could we do about it? That's one thing I always remember my mom saying to me is like, what can I do? Like what? So what's the point of looking into it if I'm powerless to it? I'm powerless to change it, That's one of those things in terms of like having this mindset of being what I call a consciousness theorist versus a coincidence theorist. A consciousness theorist is like, you have to ask that question. You can't, if there's that little gem, like with the JFK gem is the magic bullet theory, right? That one bullet went through JFK, through the governor, out the governor, entered the governor again. Like it exited and entered like 5 places. And then apparently the theory is that bullet was like discovered on like a gurney in the hospital, right? So that sort of harkens to 9/11 and them finding a passport in the rubble, right? And these little things, these gems that I'm talking about, as an older, where I'm at now, I think there's more to those than we've considered before, in terms of, perhaps that this, either someone is trying to let us know what they're doing, and for the people who are able to, thinking in a consciousness theorist way, open-minded, questioning everything, knowing that you don't know, but then always striving to know, what you can know. There's that balance between that. That's actually a really good concept too, is that polarity between knowing I don't know, because we are limited in what we can know, and then also that striving to know. It's not one or the other. It's a definite push and pull between that. And so, when I've read different books throughout my life, like a really good one that came along was And the Truth Shall Set You Free by David Icke. Another book that came to me in a very synchronistic way. And that book really lays out a explanation of how it works, like not only what is going on, but how the system works in terms of the Hegelian dialectic, problem, reaction, solution, weaponization, right?
Something you're touching on there, what got me to thinking is how, this heresy thing works, the pressure on people to conform and to believe or to do as they're told, even if they don't 100% believe. And it occurs to me, as you were talking, that there are probably more people than we realize that have those the gems you were talking about, the little things that say, I'm not sure if I believe that. Or people that go along with what government says, but they don't like it, or they don't completely agree with it. They pay their taxes, grudgingly, right? Or they vote like, well, I don't like either of these guys, but I got to do it, right? There's nothing else I could do. That's what you were mentioning, how people will say, well, there's nothing I can do about it, so I might as well not think about it, right? It's too hard to think about because there's no action to take. And I think that's really, in the things we see going on around us now, there's a pretty large percentage of people that have doubts, that have inklings of frustration with the government or what they're doing, but they're not willing to push against that huge pressure of everyone else. And that's really what creates heresy, right? Is this peer pressure, right? This peer pressure to fit in. And if you're the one that doesn't, you become a focal point for finger pointing or anger or name calling or whatever else. And so by being someone who points at the little magic bullet or the little inconsistency in the story, it's a scary thing to be that person who's going to speak out, because what is it about people that makes them want to do what everybody else is doing, what we call, being sheep-like. And you're a great person to talk about this, John, because more than anybody I know, I've seen you out in public talking to regular people, just trying to start a conversation. I've had the opportunity to do that with you. It's pretty cool to see how you work, because you're such a kind of easy to talk to guy, And so I'm curious what you think. Do you really think that most people who are following the religion of authority and doing what the politicians and government are saying really believe it, or are more of them just kind of going along to get along, and it's too hard to do anything else about it?
Well, I'll tell you another good story of something crazy that someone said to me that ends up being really profound. There's these moments like, my mom saying, what can I do about it? Like, it's really profound as you get older and you think about that. It's a simple statement, and it sort of shocks you a little bit when people say it, right? I had a family member, I was trying to give them the movie Vaxxed, the documentary Vaxxed. And I had bought a couple of copies of it, and I had tried to give her one. And she told me, I think I'd rather not know. And this is a person who works in the medical field, has children, right? And here I am, a close family member, saying, hey, I'm concerned about this thing, and you should be concerned about this too. And she straight up said, I would rather not know. So that shows you right there. I mean, that was a blatant example of somebody who, even if that's true, there's nothing I can do. It's basically what my mom said, it's nothing I can do about it. So I'd rather not know. I have to go along with it anyway. I have to work. My kids have to go to school. So I can't be bothered with that. What's interesting though, I mean, not everybody is like that. We spoke on our podcast, the Natural Freedom League podcast. We spoke with Henna Maria, and she was talking about the Essenes. They think Jesus was an Essene. It was like a Jewish sect of men who had all this wisdom, and but anyway, I don't know if she was talking about Jesus, but that one of them had said you can't teach people who are your family. You can't heal people who are in your family, or who are close to you, because they've seen you as a kid. And, so it's going to be harder to get through to family members. Another example of what happened, through this process for me is when I had come to that David Icke book, I was reading it, and I was go tell my parents. I was living with my parents at the time, and I'd go tell them, hey, did you know that? Listen to this. Listen to all these connections. And, the David Icke book, it's like, pick a conspiracy, right? The Martin Luther King assassination. It's just very well documented, who was involved and all these connections. all these political people that were, at Jonestown and, had connections to them, and they're all CIA, and clearly something going on, other than the official government narrative. And so I was reading the book and telling my parents different things. And my dad said, I could tell, I don't remember if they said it, I could tell they thought I was maybe going to go crazy. But the one thing I always know, and I always have this approach, is I do get into certain books and certain topics for a while. But then I always move on from it and, go to other things. It's I've never gotten stuck in one idea, this is the absolute truth. And I don't think anyone has the absolute truth. We're all putting it together. But anyway, my dad, what he did, he went and he Googled, David Icke, and he left a little article out on the table that basically discredited David Icke, called him anti-Semitic, right? That's a big tactic that is used against people who speak out. They label you as anti-Semitic or, again, domestic terrorist, whatever, ways to shut you up. So, again, here's that polarity of kind of knowing that there's certain people that you can't reach, but then also wanting to do the great work and put out information and attempt to reach people. So with Natural Freedom League, it really was birthed from going out into the public and holding signs and talking about natural law to people. And, I did have some good experiences with people. You can see the way of thinking of the norm, the common thinking, because they want to label you as, a Trump supporter or conservative or right wing. Especially us living in California and in the Bay Area. We'd go to San Francisco and we would have, people just assume that we were Trump supporters because we were speaking out against what was going on, the pandemic. Say that again?
We weren't wearing masks, and so that would automatically be, must be Trump supporters, right?
Exactly. So, the things that we've learned, I do think conservative-minded people are closer, but we had some pretty exciting moments out in Sacramento. We were kind of right in the center of the action. We had been setting up there for a few weeks, and there was a lot of rallies going on. And you would have, Antifa came out a few times. Whatever Antifa is, honestly, the Proud Boys and the Antifa looked like the same people to me. They were dressed very similarly. A lot of them had vests on, and, it could have easily been the same people. But I had moments where I was speaking to some of these people, and I was reading, this written statement that we had on a flyer saying that, you guys are all being duped. You're doing exactly what the government wants you to do. And, people were like, oh, he's crazy, whatever, but this one, woman, was sitting there talking to me, and I was like, she's basically was saying, well, why are you making those assumptions about us or whatever? And I'm like, well, clearly you're out here doing this. You think that this is motivated by, something within you, and it is, ultimately that's, they've been mind controlled. So it is coming from within them, but they're being affected from without by this signal, this paradigm. And that creates the religion, that creates that dogmatic thinking.
And it's funny too, because so often the religious paradigm, I guess you could call it, are things that don't really need to be done in everyday life. It's this whole storyline, right? And it's leading you down a particular path to look at things a certain way or to do things a certain way, but it's not necessary. It's not crucial to day-to-day operations. What they're, for instance, out there marching about in Sacramento it's something that's been broadcast on the television. So I guess in that way, that's what I was thinking when you were saying it's not coming from within you. Like, it's not an organic motivation that, who would make the best leader of all our people? I'm going to think of somebody. It's like, no, that was already given to you. Someone said this is the guy, and then you just chose to go along with that. You didn't actually think who would actually be the best person if I were going to choose anyone. Go find that guy. It's not a choice made from really thinking hard about it with your own mind. It's a choice of, here's the two options, Pepsi or Coca-Cola. Which one do you want? And it's an easy path. It's an easy choice to just kind of take something that's given to you. And that's basically what religions do for a lot of people, I find, that I've experienced in real life, is people are looking for easy answers. This experience is difficult. There's a lot of trickiness to it. There's coincidences, like you described. There's synchronicities. And then there's a lot of dissonance, things that don't match up, that don't make sense. And so if you actually want to go through and figure out all those things, it takes an incredible amount of self-awareness, self-confidence even, which is hard to develop in a society that's kind of telling you you're really not worth that much, that your value is not that great. And I think that's what puts people in that state of mind where they think, I don't know, who am I to say, I'm not someone who should be able to make a decision on that. I'm not a leader, And I think that kind of low self-esteem or low self-worth or understanding of worth is kind of what puts people in that position of being easily led or easily sold one path or the other, versus the more difficult path, which is the creative one, which is just thinking about all the options for your own self. And so that's a real out-of-the-box thinking, I guess it can be called. How do people develop that? How do we learn that our value, and the reason I'm bringing up value is because, like what we were talking about, was people will shut down new ideas, or we've read a book about viruses, for instance. We want to share with you this information. Maybe a vaccine's not safe. Someone will want to shut it down because it requires a lot of extra effort and there's a lot of resistance. So I guess I'm not really formulating that into a good question, but
I think that's why what's important is to put out art, really, or put out different ways of different approaches of putting it out there, because there will be people that you can't just talk to about it, right? But so can you think of a different way to put out, like, a poem or a song or a sticker with a a meme on it or something like that, and trying to get people those ways. One thing I was thinking a little bit earlier, and this may be part of the new age kind of bullshit, but I remember a good book that I read early on when I was probably about 19 or 20 years old was The Celestine Prophecy. I don't know if you ever read that book.
Oh yeah.
But that book, that is it's fictional, but they get into, one of the main ideas is the idea of coincidence, and that getting people to realize that those coincidences show you that there's something deeper going on than just what we experience day to day, and that it's important to pursue those coincidences in terms of at least thinking about them critically and trying to consider what they mean. It's kind of interesting because that's kind of what they want you to do in an English class, right? You're reading a book, but you're reading it critically, and there's more meaning to the book than just what is the words on the paper. And so you discover different things through foreshadowing and all these different techniques. Really, life works the same way. And ultimately, that to me, that implies a creator, right? That mystery implies, and that synchronicity implies that there is something bigger than us that we're a part of. and to consider what that is. And, you know, in what we've been talking about, another thought that popped in my head is the idea of Occam's razor. And I've thought about it in different ways, because the idea of Occam's razor is that a principle of theory, construction, or evaluation according to which, other things equal, explanations that posit fewer entities or fewer kinds of entities are to be preferred to explanations that posit more, right? So it's saying that the simpler explanation is the most likely one. And really, I'm going to call bullshit on that. I'm going to call bullshit on that because, you know, it's not what other people are doing is looking for the simple answer, right? So in the sense of religion, you go to a funeral and you realize that religion for a lot of people is just an easy way to accept what's going on. They're going to heaven. It's an easy story to follow. It's very simple. You don't have to consider what actually happens to your soul. Is there reincarnation? What is the afterlife? What is the nature of God? With religion, it's all given to you in a nice, neat package of, you know, rules and, you know, procedures that you follow. And of course, people make with it what they will, but I'm kind of generalizing that is the simple answer to what's going on in the world. If you start looking into different religions and start comparing religions and understanding the connection between religions, then you are positing, you know, more entities into the explanation, right? And that is actually closer to the truth. And, you know, I think that they use that concept against us with a lot of the conspiracies in the media that we receive and the propaganda that we receive, because they give us the conspiracies, right? They give us the magic bullet. They give us Building 7. They do it like right in our face. And a lot of that is for obfuscating the truth also. And it's probably also to overwhelm people, right? If people are already not able to consider those things on a deeper level, well, now you're like, oh man, someone got away with killing the president. Like, who am I? What am I going to do about that? The answer to that, to those people, the answer to that of what can I do? The answer is you can speak. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a grandma who's retired. You go out with your friends to breakfast, you can speak the truth, and you can challenge the dogma and the this mundane thinking, or how would you describe it? I mean, ultimately it really is, Satanism, right? But that is ultimately the religion that we're living under, right? And it's the religion of psychopaths and secondary psychopaths, right? So you're just a regular psychopath who's like manipulating everybody, and you're creating all this, the land of Oz. You're generating the lie and the false paradigm, and you're doing that to take advantage of people, or whatever. And then you've got the secondary psychopaths who are just going along with it and then participating in things that are psychopathic, and Satanism is just the bells and whistles. It's like the religion of that way of thinking, and I would say that atheism goes along with that and is tied into that, the idea that like there is no God and we have to look to man for the answer. It's definitely a war against nature, right? People are afraid to return to nature and survive off the land and survive without government. We're so detached from that, and that's what makes them able to control us. And like you said, also, when they get you in that mind frame, then they bring up these big issues that like it doesn't really affect you in your day-to-day life, but a global virus, right? It's like, well, I mean, what can we do about I mean, it's if that was a real thing, I mean, what you have to live your life and just, go through it. And, it's like, but yeah, they get you in that mind frame and they get you to do ridiculous stuff. If you believe ridiculous concepts, you will do ridiculous things. And so now these people are scrambling to save themselves from getting sick. And it's just ridiculous. We've lived our whole life with diseases and illnesses. And it's like, what do they think's going to happen? Everyone's going to die? Like, that's not going to happen, right? It's like, that's never happened. Why do you believe that everyone's going to die? And if that was what was meant to happen, why would you be against it? I mean, I thought you believed in evolution, right? Like, if we're supposed to get wiped out, then just be good with it.
That's the natural order of things, right?
Exactly.
I was thinking about input and output. On the one hand, we have, we're kind of like a machine in a way, this natural machine, this organic natural machine, but we're the arbitrator of input and output in this amazing, you could call it a device, I could say, a piece of technology, our human body. It's a pretty fantastic thing. But, I remember being a kid, and when someone's saying something you don't want to hear, you put your hands on your ears and just yell, I can't hear you, And it's like, maybe that's a good tool, because what I found is when I shut off the TV, I basically, it's been years since I really watched sitcoms or television shows. I found them to be, I started really realizing that even if I'm conscious and aware and paying attention, these scenes from these shows still stick in my head and they still play out the next day, the next week. And like what we were talking about on the news, they're presenting a particular story and they're putting it right on your face, but it doesn't really necessarily have to do with day-to-day life. It's a huge distraction. So we can control that input. So there's something really powerful that we can do right there is control the input into our computer, into our mainframe. Don't allow certain information even in. Don't access that information. And then on the inner level, this is where I find truth in things I disagree with. Like I said, I don't call myself a Christian anymore, but I love things that I found in the Bible and that I studied in the Bible many years. I still find a lot of things like knock and the door will open, seek and you shall find. That's something I've found to be very true living life. If I really concentrate on a problem and really think about something, I'll find these answers, sometimes through synchronicity, sometimes through another person. John might come up with what I needed to hear to answer my problem. Meditating, why do people meditate? Because they find in meditation some sort of peace, or they find answers. Some people find it in dreams. Where do these things come from? It's not just from nothing, right? It comes from somewhere. And then we have output. And that's really amazing power that we have. Think of every book that's been written, every movie that's been made, every story that's been told have affected other people and the minds of other people and changed the outcome of the story, the actual happenings, the reality of the world. So the power of the word is an amazing power. And I think back to one of my favorite people to talk about, Thomas Paine. I was just reading his biography written by Christopher Hitchens, and he describes how no one else in early America, we think of all these founding fathers as being these freedom advocates. No one was really talking about totally breaking away from Britain or England, the king, the royal, until Thomas Paine wrote about it in Common Sense. And that's what kind of opened up a lot of people's minds, like, oh yeah, why are we connected to them? Why are they taking our money? But until he said it out loud and wrote it, and that was passed around, it didn't really change. I mean, think about the printing press, when the printing press, how much did that change history? So the power of the word in our voice is an amazing power that we have control over. We have this technology, so we can see all through history how people have changed history with their word, with their powerful voice. So those to me are the things that we have to change reality. How we input things and how we output them and how we process them in the meantime.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. And, one thought on that is when at that age, around 18, when I kind of lost my religion, I remember my sister and me at the same time it happening, and she kind of rejected it completely, where I wanted to keep the positive, but like let go of, so kind of just finding the gems in it and finding the meaning in it. I always thought that clearly the Bible has had such an effect on the world that it's important to know the story and understand like what effect it's had on the world, even if it was completely fiction. I mean, clearly it's had a huge effect on the world. So yeah, I agree with you. It's like that is our power, is the words. And I think it's cool that, Mark Passio really is, does not just Mark Passio, but the format of presenting, speaking it into the air, not just writing it, putting it into the air is important, and putting it out on the internet. It's like, that's the age of Aquarius, right? Like everything's in the air now. So it's good to sit down, write it down, and then put it in the air.
Since you brought that up, I was gonna I forgot to share this. I found the definition, or not the definition, but the etymology, the derivation of the word apocalypse. And apocalypse comes from late 14th century revelation or disclosure, from the church Latin apocalypsis or revelation. So it means to uncover, to disclose, or to reveal, off, away from. To cover or to conceal, and so this is to open up, and to reveal. The meaning, I guess I like best, out of all those, uncover, disclose, reveal. So being that we're the heretics trying to reveal things to people, we're dealing with some heavy artillery against us in the form of what's government going to do about it, or what are these social media platforms going to do about people like you and I that are going to bring up these uncomfortable truths or gems. They're going to try to shut us down, and they're doing that with censorship. So I'd like to hear your ideas on how to deal with that problem of authority trying to shut you down, and other people, your own community, trying to shut you down. How do we keep speaking up when it's such a hard job and there's so much resistance? How do you keep your spirits up? How do you do it?
Well, I've always been a pretty optimistic guy. When I go out there to talk to people, first of all, I think that is a big part of the solution. We got to get off the internet as well as being on the internet. So use all the different, understand the internet really well. Take Mark Passio's class if you need to, but understand you take it twice, like I need to. Understand that information, put it out there. But also then once you have your website, go out and go stand on a corner or go to a farmer's market, stand on the outskirts of the farmer's market, hand out information about natural law or whatever it is that you're researching or you want to talk about. We're all on our own path to try to figure this thing out. So if you think it's important, tell people about it, talk about it. Ultimately, it's all one big conspiracy, right? And it's all, it's a spiritual struggle that we're going through. And you do want to wake people up, but also accept that there's people that aren't going to wake up and you're not going to be able to reach them. But it's important to put that effort out there. So you want to hit it on all levels, because I know that when we were going out there a lot for Natural Freedom League, we were getting definitely a lot of website traffic just from handing out flyers and talking to people. So,
and then on a personal level, anyone who's doing what you're doing, it's difficult. You're dealing with a situation now where some of your own family members are treating you differently, maybe even close friends. So we're asking people basically when we're doing this type of speaking to head in that direction, to become a heretic. And that's a scary road to go down because you might lose friends, you might have family members that reject you. So what kind of advice would you have for people to deal with that type of resistance, the personal problems and depression of being lonely,
I would say come to terms with it as soon as you can. It's kind of like death. You have to come to terms with that we're all going to die, and that the fear is really the pain that you're going to feel probably, but the death is just a transition. I mean, I know that might be hard for some people to believe, or maybe people haven't come to terms with that, but I know that I feel like I've come to terms with that, whether that's through experiencing the death of my father, or even just certain things that happened to me where I, could have died. And, sort of you have those moments where your life flashes before your eyes for a minute, and, maybe you're being dramatic. It wasn't that bad, but you still go through that process. I will say psychedelics have probably added to that, that understanding. But yeah, it is like a death, like with certain family members, with a lot of family members, I've had to just kind of cut them off because, one, with the stuff we're talking about, I again, this may be me being a little dramatic, but I get concerned that they may report me, if they don't like something that I'm doing in my life. So I would rather be separated from them on that level. But there's also a level of, I have this saying that, I'm tired of playing make-believe with people. So, if I was invited to family events, which now I'm not, so maybe COVID had some silver linings in it, but if I had to go to family events, I pretty much just bit my tongue and didn't really talk about much, because, these are people who think George Bush was a hero, and, they, are, just they idolize these people, and it's a whole different way of thinking. So, in family situations, if I ever am in them, which I rarely am now, except for my mom, I don't really bring this stuff up anymore, because I've had enough rejection from people where they're just like so close-minded to what I'm saying, and they basically think that I'm crazy. They don't see it. Yeah, I've thought about approaching those people again, and maybe at some point I will. Part of me doing this presentation is kind of directed at those people to try to say, hey, this is how I look at the world. This is how I see it. Open your mind for an hour and consider what I'm saying, about what's going on. I don't, believe that I'm 100% correct, but through my intuition and through my, research and understanding and experience, this is what I think is going on, and just consider it. And, again, if I can reach people that way, if I have this presentation I could send to people, that may be easier, or if I had it written out, in a letter or something like that. You can always reapproach, but I think in the short term, you have to come to terms with what's going on. And, the pandemic has made that all much more urgent at this time, where, there's not a lot of compromise in terms of if someone's asking me to, mask my kids up to come over to their house, like, that's not happening. So we're not coming to your house. It's like, so, yeah, you just have to come to terms with it. And, I think also, through Mark's work, in the time that I was studying that, and really coming to the understanding of morality, right? And, the lack of morality, and a lot of things that these people are doing, I consider to be very immoral. And that makes it a lot easier to not want to be around them. So I don't know. I may be a little cold-hearted.
I don't think so at all. I mean, your heart is part of what keeps me going, and that's kind of where I was going to go next. My advice to people is to seek community and to create community. I think the path that I'm asking anyone to go on, and you're asking people to go on, is a difficult, scary journey. And it's going to require you to be made fun of, or people to point fingers at you, or to put yourself in uncomfortable situations. And so it takes a lot of endurance, really, because you are going to kind of get beat down at certain times. I think all of us in our group have experienced that. But the fact that we formed a group, and that now we're to the point where we're able to speak out as a group and create a conference, can show just how powerful that community can be. And to me, this symbol that I put behind me of the tree of life, the whole point of that is to describe the interconnectedness of what we are, that we are all interconnected. We're all part of the same thing. Even these people that are asleep, even people we want to call sheep, they're part of us too. And that's why we're working on output of the word. And really one of the best things that have come for me is meeting people like you, John, and the other people in our group that have, I interviewed Leslie and Will. All these people that I've met have helped me get through the difficulty of being a conspiracy theorist, a heretic, in a world that really just wants to believe in whatever's easiest, when we're asking people to think about the hardest things.
That's a great point. That is a great point, Chris, because I was kind of focused more on the dealing with the emotions of not being around your family. But, the positive side of it is, I've met great people, and people have come together to form networks. And I love our Sunday night meetings. It's like therapy, right? It's like we're basically like taking care of each other, spiritually and mentally and emotionally. And and that's the beauty of it all. There's something about, embracing that change and embracing that, you have to go through that tough part to find something better. And that's a lot what is being created, right? We've talked about this a lot, that there's basically two worlds being created. This whole thing is consensual. They have to get your consent. So continue to not consent to these people, and, plan to get out, one part of my theory, which I've kind of come to just more recently, is that, this is the beginning of the dark winter, right? It's kind of like Game of Thrones. The grand solar minimum is happening, and there's a peak to it probably around 2030. Look how cold it's been this year. Look at all this rain we're getting, right? These are all like a natural process that the earth is going through. And the ruling class knows this. They know this cycle is coming. So they're going to try to get everyone to sign up to their program and keep going with, version 3.0 of whatever they've been doing. And in the meantime, weakening everybody, right? Because we're going to have less sun. It may be harder to grow food. But again, I really think we need to look at this, like, especially on a longer term, but especially like the next 20 years, that we are in this process of the grand solar minimum. And we need to focus on those networks, focus on people of like mind, help each other, support each other. This is how you survive without government. That's true anarchy. But it takes accountability. It takes involvement, right? We're detaching from their system. But there will be a system, because you'll need to get supplies. You'll need to get food. You will need to rely on people. And, they've been part of their program is to get us to not trust each other and to fear each other. And that's a big part of how they control us. So great point that you made there, buddy.
I don't know. That's pretty heretical talk there, John.
Domestic terrorist stuff. The DTs.
Who knows where things are going to go? It's interesting, and it's exciting. It's scary, but at least we got each other. And another thing I thought of was the One Great Work Network. How awesome of a thing that is, and I really appreciate having that place to be streaming this show on, and a lot of great people to meet there too that are already on this journey that we're on. So there's people out there. So if you're listening and you want to become someone who's the black sheep of society and a heretic, join us. It's lots of fun.
Yeah.
It's the place to be.
It's actually really great.
So that's probably a good place to kind of close up. So why don't you tell us where people can find your work and about your website, whatever you got coming up. Any announcements you want to make, John?
Yeah, check us out, naturalfreedomleague.com. I always say this, the website is due for some updates, but you can contact us there. Our podcast, it's a little sporadic. We got 45 episodes. Go check those out on YouTube, on Odyssey. And yeah, we're trying to just, moving forward with this conference, inspired to branch out into different ideas. I would like to do some poetry, some music. So yeah, naturalfreedomleague.com. That's where you can find me.
Right on. Yeah, and if you look close enough, I'm sure you'll find some of John's artistic music. I love your raps. And that's on YouTube too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
check
stuff.
it out for sure. I got I'm doing some kids project, kids music stuff, which is stuff I just always wanted to do. Mr. John's hip hop songs. Y'all can check that out too. I need some subscribers on YouTube for that. And I need to add some more content to that, but that's coming soon.
Right on. Well, good stuff.
Thanks
John.
for having me on, Chris.
Much appreciated. Always love to chat and get my mind going with all these heretical thoughts.
Yes.
Right on. So we'll talk again soon. I'm going to go move over here to my closing screen if I can figure out how to do that. And we'll see you next time, brother.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
Right on. All right.
Peace.
Later on. What screen am I looking for here? There it is. Nope.
Should I leave or is it still going?
You're still here. I can't figure out how to get rid of you.
All right, I'll leave, buddy.
All right, thanks.
Talk to you later.
Right.
Bye.
Great show. Okay, folks, we'll see you next week. We'll be back for more great content and check out endevil.life, onegreatworknetwork.com, freedomundernaturallaw.com is where you can sign up and register for our upcoming conference. And with that, I'm going to sign out for the week, and we'll see you next week. Have a good one, folks. Thank you.
To let them into the world without your guidance or help,
Right. Chris Jantzen. Yeah, here we are in Sacramento,
State Capitol. Spiritual Law Saturday at the Soulless State House. What's up, brother? Yeah.
Evil's the destruction of freedom. That's my sign for
that's
today.
right. Ain't that the truth? All right, we're going to be here from about 10 to 2. Exactly. Someone's got to stop by at some point, right? Beautiful.
Thank you.
That was nice. Should take some information.
Okay.
No Donald Trump, no nationalism, no Barack Obama, no socialism, no to the Bushes, no conservatism, no to the Clintons, no liberalism, no fascism, no communism, no capitalism, no politicians, no to all of their isms, and no to all of their schisms, cause we on a mission to unite the divisions. I'm in the know, I'm in the know, I'm in the know, I'm in the know, cause first you must know so you can say no. I'm in the know, I'm in the know, I'm in the know, cause first you must know so you can say no. No police, no military, gonna grow peace, we must build it squarely. No police, no military. If we gonna grow peace, we must build it squarely. No government, no slavery. Let love ascend. True anarchy. No government, no slavery. Let love ascend. True anarchy. No Gavin Newsom. No Andrew Cuomo. You can have that twosome. I don't wanna hear them no more. It's time to create a vision anew. This ain't about America. This is about me and you. This is about being you, man, what you wanna do. Take account of your own life, or have someone ruling you. No new abnormal, no Bill Gates, no big pharma, no mandates. I'm in the know, I'm in the know, I'm in the know, I'm in the know. Cause first you must know so you can say no. I'm in the know, I'm in the know, I'm in the know. Cause first you must know so you can say no.
Admit or face just how dark of a place humanity has come to. And to do so means that certain influences in the world must be acknowledged.